I have to say that I immensely enjoy what I do today. I just turned 60 years old not that long ago, and I feel more energized than I have felt in a very long time because of the opportunity that is in front of us.
Well, and I did my own homework too, looking at Alan's bio. Featured in On the Dr. Oz Show, ABC Food Forecast, Kiss the Ground, The Regenerative Secret, which is a food documentary, Carbon Nation film series, Carbon Cowboys. So pretty cool stuff. But Alan, we just know you as a friend, and you've been a mentor and consultant for us for many years now, and have really shaped what we're doing here on our farm.
You're listening to Gray's Cast, a show that shares the secrets to selling perishable food products online. The show and advice is brought to you by the team at Seven Sons, which is an 8-figure e-commerce business that started completely from scratch. Each episode, we bring you one topic, 3 strategies, and one tangible resource to continue your learning and put you on the fast track in your own e-commerce journey. Let's begin. The easiest way to increase your sales is to sell new products to existing customers. That's a quote from the great and late Alan Nation, who is a mentor to many in the grass-fed beef industry. And it's a great kickoff to our episode today, which is going to be on the top 3 value-added beef cuts you're probably not saving. So be sure to stay until the end, because we're going to have a fun resource to share where you can help identify new opportunities and leveraging your cut plans. So my name is Brooks Hitzfield with Seven Sons and Gray's Cart, and to help us dive deeper into this topic on maximizing your carcass, we've brought in a domain expert who, for many of you, probably needs little to no introduction. Dr. Alan Williams is at the farm office today and joins us for the conversation. Alan, we're grateful to have you on.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
I think this is Alan's. I was asking Blake. I think this is your, 5th or 6th visit to our farm. We were trying to at least count up. Yep, we've really enjoyed getting to know you, Alan, and in the past we've spoken at conferences together, and we served on the Grass-Fed Exchange together. It's been a real privilege. So
yeah. Nope, we're grateful. Since you're here today, we decided to rip you down for a few interviews. So, Alan, again, most of our audience are beef producers. So, for those folks, you need no introduction. But for anyone who's listening, who's maybe not aware of what you do, could you take some time to tell us a little bit more about your background and what it is you do today? So maybe the 3-minute version of that.
You bet. So I am a farm boy. I was born and raised on my family's farm in South Carolina. Represent 6 generations. They've been there since 1840. And actually, that's sort of framed a lot of my concepts and thoughts that I use today. I went away to college and every intention to come back to the family farm, but got roped into going to graduate school purely unintentionally, and ended up getting a PhD. And then I felt obligated to go in academia, which I did. So I spent the next 15 years of my life in academia after I graduated from college, doing research and teaching. And that was a good time. I really enjoyed working with students and doing the research that we did. But one of the things that I discovered was that I really didn't enjoy bureaucracy, endless committee meetings, and red tape, and all of those other types of things that you have to endure as an academic. So after 15 years as a tenured full professor, I decided to leave and go back into private business. That was in the year 2000. So in 2000, I left academia, went back into private business. I've been farming and ranching ever since then, and also heavily involved in consulting. And that sort of leads up to what we do today. So I got heavily involved in the grass-fed sector and pastured proteins and regenerative agriculture. And a few years ago, my current partners and I formed Understanding Ag as a regenerative agriculture consulting company. And we also formed a nonprofit called the Soil Health Academy. That is our teaching arm to teach people how to implement and practice regenerative agricultural principles. And I have to say that I immensely enjoy what I do today. I just turned 60 years old not that long ago, and I feel more energized than I have felt in a very long time because of the opportunity that is in front of us.
Good deal. Well, you can tell from that introduction, Alan is well equipped to offer insights on this topic.
Well, and I did my own homework too, looking at Alan's bio. Featured in On the Dr. Oz Show, ABC Food Forecast, Kiss the Ground, The Regenerative Secret, which is a food documentary, Carbon Nation film series, the Carbon Cowboys. So many of you have probably listened to those or saw those. So pretty cool stuff. But Alan, we just know you as a friend, and you've been a mentor and consultant for us for many years now, and have really shaped what we're doing here on our farm. So, and a lot of the topics that we're going to dive into here today, the different episodes, these are actually topics that you've helped coach us through, and that we've seen a lot of value from. So.
Yeah, and Blaine, thinking about, I know, Alan, you've taken a look at kind of our cut plan multiple times to help us identify opportunity and maximizing the beef carcass. Blaine, can you speak a little bit more on what kind of difference that's made in terms of numbers?
Yeah. I mean, the problem is, as you kind of alluded to, Brooks, in the beginning of the episode there, these are cuts you're probably not saving. So it's maybe products that are just going into ground beef. And so you're talking high-end steaks that you're grinding currently. There's a good chance that you are. And so that's, for us, working with Alan, between adding 5 to 10 different cuts that we weren't saving before, I know I just calculated the other day, we have added over $500 of value to the carcass. And that's not having to raise another animal. That's not having to process another animal. So most of that is pure profit added as margin. So this is a high leverage thing to look at and focus on. So, but it also can be overwhelming, the whole cut plan, understanding the carcass. So
Exactly.
That's why, Alan, we wanted to hear from you. If you can't add 10 brand new cuts at once, and maybe your processor isn't willing to work with you on that many cuts, what are some of the top 3 at least that we should look at first?
That's a very good question. And as you said, Blaine, there are many, many different ways to fabricate a carcass, especially a beef carcass. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, a choice in one area means that you no longer have an option in another. Right. So the very way you have it fabricated is going to dictate the type of cuts that you can get out of a carcass. But when you're looking at what I would consider to be the top 3 value-added cuts that most people do not save, I'm going to start with a cut out of the chuck. Okay. The chuck is this exquisite primal muscle, and of course it's the shoulder of the animal that is, first of all, almost all of the cuts out of the chuck are loaded with flavor, incredibly robust flavor profile. Secondly, and I don't think most people realize this, but when an animal deposits marbling, that intramuscular fat that is so highly prized by consumers because of the value, the flavor, and the juiciness that it adds to the end product, they often don't consider the chuck in there. They only think about the middle meats, the ribeye, the strip loin, the tenderloin. But the chuck actually is the most heavily marbled portion of an entire beef carcass. So not only is it loaded with flavor, but it's loaded with marbling. So my first cut of choice is what we call the Teres Major. That we can cut out of that chuck. And it goes by a lot of other names. It's called a mock tender, a shoulder tender, shoulder petite tender, or even the butcher's tender.
And that's what makes us even more confusing, is trying to nail down the terminology with your processor to figure this out. Right.
Absolutely it is. And unfortunately, over the last handful of decades in the beef industry, what has happened is that this cut has been pretty routinely ignored and just thrown into grind. But it's called a shoulder tender or mock tender for a reason. It's because it is the second most tender muscle in the entire beef carcass behind the tenderloin itself. But guess what? It's much more robustly flavored than the tenderloin muscle. So for me, I would rather eat this Teres Major or shoulder tender than I would an actual tenderloin or filet mignon.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Now, the issue is, though, is that it takes a skilled butcher to be able to seam this muscle out. So not just anybody can do it. They have to have a little bit of training, to be able to be proficient at this. The good thing today is that there's a lot of YouTube videos out there. So
that's what I was going to ask. What's the best way to go about communicating with your processor?
Absolutely. The best way is to find 2 or 3 of the very best step-by-step instructional videos for seaming out the shoulder tender or this Teres Major, and to take that to your processor and show that to them, and then go through the process with them so that you both are seeing and understanding what you're trying to seam out here.
So I think this is probably the same cut we market as the Petite Tender.
Absolutely.
Yes. So it's when you look at the muscle, it's like a small tenderloin, hence the name. And it's just as tender and more flavorful.
And thinking about helping identify the opportunity cost for people, what do you see that retail for at a lot of different places who are saving that cut?
Yeah, so let's do a direct comparison, right? So let's say if you're a grass-fed beef producer, you're marketing your hamburger at $6, $7, $8 a pound, somewhere in there.
Yep.
And so if you take this chuck and you grind it all up, that's your value on the end product.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I seam out this Teres Major, and we could spend a lot of time talking about the other host of cuts that you can seam out of a chuck, but the Teres Major I can easily sell for $14 a pound all day long without any problem.
Mm-hmm. I think, Brooks, we sell the Petite Tender for, I should have looked before we came, but I know it's over $25 per pound.
Absolutely.
Pretty sure. So
absolutely. Yep.
And it's consistently always good. It's tender. Yeah. It's one of those cuts you can rely upon to be a awesome eating experience.
So selling it for that price, people are normally just throwing that into ground a lot of times.
Right.
And because of how difficult it is, the skill it takes to pull that cut, will sometimes processors charge more for it, or do you not see that often?
Sometimes they will, but this is also where you really have to work with your processor and help them understand the value, because they're actually bringing value to themselves in the other work that they do and services that they offer once they learn how to do this. So it's a win-win situation.
And that's a great way to communicate it when bringing it up, if it's something that they're not able to do up front. So
absolutely.
Cool. So the Teres Major, number one. What do we have for number two?
Number two, we're going to go to a totally different portion of the carcass. We're going to go towards the rear of the carcass in the sirloin section, and we're going to go to the culotte.
Okay.
And the culotte is just simply the top cap of the sirloin. So it's a cap muscle. And once again, this is a cut that is often ignored, and it's just thrown into grind routinely, but yet the culotte is a richly flavored piece of meat that is actually pretty tender.
So how many pounds can you yield from say a 650 pound carcass?
Yeah, so from your typical animal, say 650 pounds or so, you're going to, and it depends on the skill of the butcher and so forth, but you're going to get anywhere from usually about 3 to 4 pounds. It can vary, but 2 to 4 pounds total of culotte per animal. But again, a culotte can easily be sold for anywhere from $15 to over $20 a pound.
Is there other names that cut goes by?
Yeah, there's some culotte is the newer name for it, and the name that I prefer because it's sort of an exotic name. It appeals to the consumer. But in the past, actually, this was a cut that butchers knew very well decades ago, and they would call it a top cap or a top sirloin steak, something like that, or a cap sirloin steak. So there were multiple names that they used. But again, this was, if you'd have gone to a butcher shop 50 plus years ago, this would have been a very common item that you would have been able to find in that butcher shop. But over the years, with the major packers taking over, and butcher shops almost disappearing.
Mhm.
They're starting to come back
Yep.
now, but
But we've lost that artisan,
Mhm.
that artisan butcher. Right?
absolutely. And this shoulder tender, petite tender, Teres Major that we talked about first, this Culotte that we're talking about second, both were favorites. They were considered butchers' favorites, and oftentimes when they were fabricating a carcass in their butcher shops, they would actually take this home for their own families and not even sell it. They were so good.
So that's a good way to market it and introduce cuts like these to customers that may not be familiar with them. Just market them as, and let people know these at one time were the butcher's favorite because it was their secret. They knew about it and most people didn't and don't today. Right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Culotte for number 2. What do we have for number 3?
Okay, number 3, I'm going to go to yet another portion of the carcass. We're going to go to the plate, what's called the plate subprimal. And the plate is located directly underneath the rib subprimal, so towards the front of the animal. On the interior of the plate is the diaphragm muscle, and this is actually the bigger part of what is technically the diaphragm muscle here, and it's called the hanger steak. The hanger steak.
Hanger steak. Okay.
Exactly. And I'm going to be honest with you that if you could only allow me to eat one steak for the rest of my life, it would be the hanger steak. It is that good.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, it's incredibly tender. It's very richly marbled, and it has this incredibly deep flavor that has a complexity to it that allows you, not just in the first bite, in the first chew, but as you get multiple chews in, it's almost like the flavors keep coming. They're so complex. So the hanger is absolutely one of my favorites. It is also, it's one of what we call the flat meats or the thin meats to go along with like skirt steak and flank steak and so forth and flat irons, because it is a narrower cut of beef, but it is also one of those things that was considered a butcher's secret decades ago. And many consumers that would visit a butcher shop never, ever even saw these offered, because the butcher would always cut this out and take this home.
And is that the cut that is often referred to as a hanging tender too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so it's again, it's an exquisite cut. And when we look at the 3 cuts that we've outlined here, these offer exceptional value. They are easy to seam out once you learn how to do it. And they offer something that's unique to your customer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we want to do. We want to be able to introduce our customer to the fact that there is more to a beef carcass than ribeyes, tenderloins, and strip steaks and hamburger.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I like about this, is because it's a way to take great cuts that, you know, have a great eating experience, but still offer even a value to your customer. I think we created a guide on our website. It's the steak buying guide. And that was one thing that we really highlighted in the guide, is that, we all know about the ribeyes, we know about the filet, but if you want your value and still get amazing eating experiences, go to some of these other more unique options. I think we highlighted the hanging tender in there. My favorite steak is the skirt steak, actually. That's my go-to that I'll head to every single time, and it's a more economical cut.
Right.
So a great way for those people who come at you who are a little bit more price sensitive, but they still would love to have steaks in their order.
For example, the hanging tender, we retail it for $19 per pound.
Yep.
And so it's not as expensive as filet mignon, but it's just as good of an eating experience. So this brings more options to your customers, and it's such a no-brainer. I mean, what other way can you think of to increase your margin? You're not increasing your pricing per se. You're just offering different products, higher value products to your same customer base. So.
Yeah, you put that effort into producing this animal, and then from here, this is what we would call working smarter and not harder. Just doing the research to identify some opportunities.
And just a tip: when we started introducing these new cuts, you will find that some customers are not familiar with them. They may have some concern. It's new. Will I be able to cook it right? Will it taste good? One thing that we did is we added many of these new cuts because when we started saving them, we kind of gathered them up in inventory because people weren't used to them yet, so they weren't flying off the shelf. But we would build inventory up on these, and then we would include them in bundles. And since it's it's no longer ground beef, it's a steak cut now at $19 per pound. We could offer a discount for that bundle because we have this new steak in there, so it creates a value proposition to buy the bundle, and they're not having to make the decision to actually buy it. It's included, and then they try it and they love it. And now these are cuts that we struggle to keep in stock. So,
and the other great thing about these 3 cuts that we just mentioned, the Teres Major, the Culotte, and the hanger steak, is that they are very convenient. They're quick and easy to prepare. Because of the robustness of flavor, they only need simple seasonings, salt and pepper, and that's it, and you're good to go.
They're hard to mess up in the kitchen.
Oh, incredibly hard. And you can broil them in the kitchen, or you can throw them on a grill, and in 10 to 15 minutes, you've got dinner. So, a lot of consumers want convenience these days. These 3 cuts offer the ultimate convenience with the benefit of incredible flavor,
which makes them great products to introduce to brand new customers as well. You want customers, brand new customers, to have a great experience. The easiest way to do that is provide them with convenience and a product that they can't mess up in the kitchen, or at least it would be very hard to mess up in the kitchen.
And if those same customers want to entertain in their homes, they want to impress their family and friends, these 3 cuts allow them to do that and to allow them to wow their dinner guest.
Yes, awesome. This has been great. These are great 3 great cuts that I know that we save, and we've started saving after we've consulted with you, and they've become customer favorites, and they've added value for everybody.
Yep. Very easy win for your business. Alan, we appreciate you sharing. So again, these are cuts that are typically going into grind. So something that you can do some further research in, talk to your processor about, and then, start adding them as value for your customers, and obviously a way for you to capture more margin and leverage that carcass further. So just to recap, we have the Teres Major is number 1, the Culotte, or what was another word you had?
Top cap. Sirloin.
And then is it hanger?
Hanger.
Yeah. Okay. I always called it hanger steak.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, so there you guys have it. Go ahead. Let us know in the comment section, wherever you're watching or listening to this recording here. Let us know, if you try these 3 different cuts, which ones are your favorite. As we had mentioned, that we do have a resource for you at the end of the episode, and Blaine, maybe you can speak to this a little bit further, where you can do some further research to help identify new cuts for that carcass.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this will cover all the different cuts that Alan is talking about, but it's a helpful website, beefitswhatsfordinner.com. You can get a lot of ideas from there, and just ideas on how to describe maybe some of your current products. If you're lacking product descriptions, you can get some real inspiration from that. But these cuts that Alan are talking about, like Alan was saying, not many processors save these anymore. So I think YouTube would be a great resource as well, especially as you're trying to describe that to your processor, because you want to go to them and make it as simple as possible for them to save those cuts for you.
Perfect. Alan, thanks for joining us again. We appreciate it.